All right, let's go ahead and call to order our February 28th Left 2 board meeting and start off with a moment of silence.
Good morning.
All right, thank you. Go ahead, Steve.
Good morning, Mark. We've got 4 other board members on the phone, and Pat and Dennis here, so there is a quorum of the meeting, and we just are underway now. The first item up is the legislative update. Today is day 52 of a 60-day session, and I am cautiously optimistic that it will be, well, I guess the Constitution says it'll be a 60-day session, so that's guaranteed. But I'm also, there does not seem to be a likelihood of need for a special session. There's still some disagreements between the House and the Senate on, mainly on funding for K-12, but the both sides are expressing optimism that they'll be able to resolve that without the need for a special session. So we're headed down, if that's true, we're headed into the final week. The Left 2 board bill regarding interrupted military service credit, that bill passed out of the House, passed over to the Senate, and has met all the cutoffs. It passed out of the Senate Ways and Means Committee earlier this week and is currently in Senate rules. So we are tracking that bill. The bill was amended in the House to include the technical corrections for all the plans, but that is the only amendment on the bill. There were several bills that were not introduced by the Left 2 board, but do affect Left Plan 2 either directly or indirectly, and so I want to talk about a few of those. Let me start with the House and Senate budget bills. Right now, neither bill includes the payment to the benefit improvement account. The governor's budget did include that payment that was due last September but was not included in the operating budget. And so the supplemental operating budgets for the House and the Senate also, as they were released, do not include that payment. There's a lot of discussion going around about potentially adding it, but that is not currently in either the House or the Senate supplemental budget. They both had some language about flexibility regarding making payments in the future, including perhaps making the payment out of the trust fund, the way the last payment was made. So we will be tracking that issue closely. There were a number of bills, some carrying over from last session, some new ones, dealing with L&I benefits. And to the extent that an injury or illness is considered duty-related or disabling, but particularly if it's considered duty-related by L&I, then it's considered duty-related by DRS. And so there's a bit of a carry forward, if you will, pension impact on some L&I bills. Specifically, there was a bill that would have added a heart attack and stroke presumption for law enforcement officers, added a stroke presumption for firefighters, and added a couple of different cancers to the list of presumptive duty-related cancers. That bill did not pass out of House Appropriations prior to the Fiscal Committee cutoff earlier this week. I don't know if there are currently plans to amend the bill and bring it up for a House floor vote anyway or not. So we're still tracking that one closely. But another bill regarding PTSD. PTSD as a result of a single event has always been considered something that L&I would consider duty related. PTSD as a result of multiple exposures, though, what did not fall into the existing definition of an occupational injury. So what this bill did was provide that PTSD, even if it's a result of multiple exposures, could be considered duty-related, and created a presumption, in fact, that it is duty-related for left members. That bill did pass out of the House prior to cutoff, so it is very, very much alive. We're tracking that bill and working with both Department of Retirement Systems and L&I to get clarification on how they will implement the bill. There were some questions about whether certain types of complications, if you will, from PTSD would or would not still be considered duty-related. The other bill that increases the left membership doesn't change the duties at all, but does provide for a group of members to be included in Left 2 is the McNeil Island Firefighters Bill. Board members will remember there was a briefing on this bill earlier this interim. The board chose not to endorse the bill, but the bill has passed out of the House and out of the Senate committee and is currently in Senate rules. So that bill is also still alive. And then I will mention too, there was another bill dealing with the authorizing, this didn't affect Left 2, but it affects the Left 2 board. And that bill would authorize the Left 2 board to set the salary for the executive director. That bill passed out of the House and passed out of the Senate Fiscal Committee with some amendments. And so that bill is also still alive.
Steve, can I interrupt you there?
Yeah, Mike.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to motion that we endorse House Bill 2709.
All right, there's been a motion to endorse House Bill 2709. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
All right, the motion's been made and seconded. Is there discussion? Michael?
Yes. So I apologize. My thought process was to do this at our last meeting, and I realize that, as Steve mentioned, it's day 52 of day 60 during the legislative session. But I think it's, we've been working towards this for quite a while. I think now the past couple of years of trying to be able to take care of our executive director, and I think it's very important that we come out and support this bill, and not that we've had any opposition or any consideration that this is not left to request legislation, but would just shore it up a little bit more. I have personally testified on it. Mr. Chair, you have testified on it. So I would ask that we support this and vote yes on this endorsement.
Any
Mr.
other
Chair?
seconds? Or, I'm sorry, any other comments?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, this is a day I totally concur. I think being silent may be misconstrued as not caring. I think the board discussed this issue actually a couple of times in the past. I think the essence of the board is to be responsible and be accountable. And in order for us to be responsible and be accountable, I think we need to be able to have some latitude and control and be able to set salary for the position that reports to the board. I think by sending a message to the legislator, they would know where we stand, and I think hopefully that will further make them feel comfortable about their decision. I don't really foresee many of them having any problem with this, but I'm sure it will reassure them that some of us, all of us, totally support this idea too. So I agree.
All right, thank you, Ade.
Mr. Chair, this is Jason.
Go ahead, Jason.
Yeah, just to parlay on what Mike had said. So the the law enforcement stakeholder groups have done the same and have showed support for this, and then also testified in support of this, and also engaged legislators in support of that bill as well. So just to inform everybody on what the law enforcement side has been doing.
Thank you, Jason. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Any other comments? All right, seeing none. All those in favor, say aye, slowly.
Aye.
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 And aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you very much. Mr. Nelson?
Thank you. Mr. Chair, that concludes my legislative update. If there are no further questions on any of the legislative items, we will plan on sending out blasts to all of the stakeholders who've expressed interest, email notices about any item that affects Left 2 and how it plays out for the remainder of the session. So be on the lookout for those. If you have any particular questions, any board members, if you have any particular questions about a specific bill, please feel free to contact me for the latest updates, if you will. With that, I will move on to the administrative update. The DRS rulemaking projects have kind of been on hold during session. At least the coordinated meetings haven't been happening, but DRS has continued to work on their end towards finalizing the draft rules for duty-related disabilities that were finished up last December, and so those should be there should be a public hearing on the adoption of those rules scheduled here in the very near future. We'll keep you posted too. We've been working with DRS on identifying some other areas where this cooperative rulemaking process could continue to move forward. It's been helpful, I think, for both agencies. And so we'd like to continue on the positive momentum. Aside from that, outreach activities going on. WACOPS had their winter meeting in January. There was a presentation there both on what the board was planning to do for session, but also on how to use the board website, which was really well received. There is an extraordinary amount of useful information out on the board website, but one of the things we've been hearing is some members are having a hard time finding it, and so we were giving them tips on how to find what they're looking for and some information about what all is out there. And we'll continue that same thing by trying to get some stuff out on the front page of the website, letting people know how to find everything else that's on the website and what else is out there. There also the video, most recent video from the board on plan comparison has continued to receive very positive reviews from the stakeholder groups that have had a chance to look at it. With that, the Concerns of Police Survivors has a meeting scheduled for March. Tammy will be at that meeting representing the board and answering questions in her role as ombudsman. That right now is the only outreach activity scheduled before the next Left 2 board meeting, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions for Steve?
Just a comment from Jason.
Go ahead, Jason.
As Steve said, the presentations at WACOPS they did, I think to say they were well received is somewhat of an understatement. I got tons of positive feedback not only from people that were attending the walk-ups meeting, but also specifically from my own membership, because I now can refer them to a great video on the site that not only kind of gets them to engage the site, but also they've come back with a new understanding just based on that one video of kind of how things work. And it's not so much the word of mouth that, gee, things aren't that great, but once you watch the video and you actually get your apples and apples together, they start to have a good understanding of what they have and the services they get. So again, I wanted to thank Steve for that presentation and the staff.
Thank you, Jason. I think the only other comment I had regarding outreach is I mentioned to Executive Director Nelson is that myself and Secretary Treasurer Markley and our board member Tim Hoover had a chance to meet with a group up in Sequim a couple weeks ago, and we had a conversation on the Left To flyer, the mailer that we send out. And there was a question just in general, and I think this kind of falls back what Jason was talking about, is that we have those who have been doing some of this work for a number of years have a pretty good idea of what things look like, and we can understand and kind of break down through the just the verbiage. But for a person who comes on the job or who's been around for a while, when they read a section of that newsletter, they might not know. And we had a question regarding even a good friend of mine who is retired. When I had talked about a rate reduction or the inflation rate changing, he thought he was actually getting a pay cut related to his retirement. And so, Steve and I talked about maybe we can break down this a little bit more, maybe provide a little bit more education. I think that's going to be helpful for us. I think we're finding that the more, and we're going to have a number of people retiring here in the very near future, and I think this will be another good opportunity. And I think your presentations have been very, very good. I actually made a note regarding the website, because I think that's another way. I mean, as we turn to different medias and ways to communicate with each other, I think the apps and those kind of things where our members can get on, look at things, and look at the videos and whatever they may be. I think it's going to be very helpful as we move forward. So, I mean, thank you to your entire group. It's a great team you have. So, just a comment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, the final item on the agenda is the next meeting. The next Left To board meeting is scheduled for Wednesday, March 28th. If session ends and there is no special session as expected, that would mean that the March meeting would be a full meeting. For the newer board members, the first meeting of the interim typically involves a recap of everything that happened during session and then a preliminary review of everything that has been asked to be moved to the next interim. So we'll go through all the different topics, some that you have heard in the past and some that you may not have, that were identified as something that you might consider in the 2018 interim. And this will be the first chance for you guys to start thinking about your what you want to take on in the upcoming interim. You won't have to make all those decisions at the March meeting. This is sort of giving you a preview of what is on the menu, if you will. And with that, I would be happy to answer any other questions that you have, but that's all I have for my presentation, Mr. Chair.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Steve? Being none, I just have one more comment, and it's more of a reminder for our board members. The executive director's evaluation has been sent out. We had posted a March 1st kind of a deadline. I would ask you, if you haven't done so, please take the time to do the evaluation. Probably would take you no more than 15 minutes to accomplish. So that would be very helpful if you can get that done today, as we are on February 28th. So, and also just another side note, it is today is the 100th anniversary of the IAFF back in Washington, D.C. So as an international union, we've been around for 100 years and seen a lot of changes. And with Brother McElligott, I'd like to, can you tell us what it was like back then, Pat? Just kidding, just kidding. So, yeah, you remember, I know. Are there anything else before our board before we break?
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead, Ade.
Just like we lost one of our family members, police officer from Federal Way, and Officer Frank Martin. He was battling with cancer for so many, months, and he passed away on the 12th, and he was buried last week, on February 21st in Sunnyside. I think, he died of cancer, and it was just, as I said, it was one of our Federal Way family, and we will greatly miss him. I just want to pass that on to the board. Secondly, I think I'll be out of the country for a couple of weeks. Just want to let Tammy know, just in case an email comes in and I'm not responding. So I may not be able to attend the meeting of the 28th. So, but, I will seek the board to approve an excused absence. That is the case.
So noted, Ade. And we appreciate that. Thank you for your comments regarding the loss of the officer, and our thoughts and prayers to the family. And to you, safe travels wherever you may journey, and we'll see you back here soon.
Thank you.
Anything else before the group? All right, seeing none, we'll go ahead and adjourn, and we'll see you back on March 28th. Thank you for calling in, and have a good day. Safe travels.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.